So Mexico has a new president, a female president elected, the first female president in Mexico, the first female president in North America. So historic vote that happened yesterday, June the 2nd. I've been covering it, had about 3 hours sleep the last 24 hours, been doing live broadcasts, writing stories, but I wanted to get something down, especially for the crash out subscribers, about what this means, what happened. I'll talk about the politics more first, which is the big news, and then get into the security, the cartels, and the implications there second, which I'm more of a specialist on. So the big news: Claudia Sheinbaum, who's the candidate for the Morena National Regeneration Party of the current president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. She won big time yesterday. She won the presidency with a vote of around 59% against the second runner-up, the second place, Xochitl Gálvez, with 29%. Xochitl Gálvez run from kind of a national alliance of a mix of parties, both old establishment left and right parties. So resounding victory for Claudia Sheinbaum of Morena. Now, the opinion polls that showed this, some people didn't believe them, but they showed this margin. And reporting around Mexico, talking to people, I didn't see anything to suggest the opinion polls were not right. I mean, no one was enthused by Xochitl Gálvez. People were going along with Claudia. Now, some of the base are very happy with her. Other people just think she's the better option. Why did this happen? And the government of López Obrador, AMLO, has been criticized very heavily by a lot of the American press, a lot of the British press, a lot of internal critics in Mexico. Some of them didn't see this scale of victory, or their critics were simply out of line with a lot of how a lot of regular Mexicans feel. So why did she win this? In some ways it was a referendum of López Obrador, of AMLO, continuation of his programs. I mean, not necessarily that big in how much money each individual gets, but he's had solid, consistent social programs where old age pensioners get money, where high school kids get scholarship money, where farmers get more money. And he's also increased the minimum wage very substantially after it went down for many decades. So for poorer people in Mexico, which is the majority, there was an improvement in their living standards, even though for most of the middle class are not feeling this, and growth in Mexico has been sluggish. There has been, what the growth there has kind of gone to an extent to the bottom, and that's the kind of program which makes people want to vote for him, want to continue it. His rhetoric, his domination of the media, sits well with a lot of people. There's been a change in terms of him using a morning press conference to really get the message out, which many people see. A lot of YouTubers who are very pro-AMLO, a lot of people watch those, and his message sits well with people. It's nationalist, kind of pro-Mexico. It's populist against kind of an elite, an out-of-touch elite, and it sits well with people. Now, I've covered on this before things like the expose of accusations, rather, of AMLO having financing from drug cartels going back some elections. Seemed a big splash in the press. There was a follow-up story in the New York Times on this. It was in these, in the United States outlets. And this all had zero negative effect on AMLO and Morena. He hit this back as being this campaign against him. There's, internal people against him and foreign people against him. And people believe that or didn't care necessarily about these, the accusations. So this had zero effect. And it does show when a lot of people are inside a kind of bubble of social media among certain people, these things can seem much bigger. This could really hurt him, really hurt their party, and it didn't. Most people didn't care about that. Now, as well as Claudia Sheinbaum winning really big in the presidency, she has the Morena party have likely 2/3 of Congress, which means they can pass constitutional reforms. She's got a big mandate. She can do many things. I don't think, as some critics say, that the Morena has been that radical, or its talk is that radical. It's basically its program is it allows capitalism to carry on, it allows businesses to go, and it punishes a few businesses that it sees as kind of being cronies, and But overall, business carries on, but it wants to pump and push social programs, and that's basically, I think, Morena's outlook. It hasn't been a real big spender who's caused, really pushed the inflation. There has been an increased cost of living, but that's often come from global impacts and from big spending by the governments in the United States and so forth that pumped a lot of money into the economy during COVID, which kind of pushed prices up. AMLO's been quite, austere, Republican austerity that he calls. What will they do with this power, with this mandate? We'll see. They have the power to change the constitution. I was at the headquarters of Morena in central Mexico City last night, and Claudia Sheinbaum came in. She gave a pretty moderate speech, saying she will continue kind of fiscal responsibility. She will not crack down on dissident press. Also a big nod to López Obrador, to AMLO, saying he's the one who really brought her in this, but also saying this is for the heroic women in Mexico. But a pretty moderate discourse, and not giving away too much about what she might do with this mandate. Now, there's a lot of things. I focus on crime and violence and cartels, and that's my speciality, and I think it's a huge issue of concern. But for many, this wasn't really the central issue in the discourse of the campaign. For many people in Mexico, this isn't the central thing they care about. They care about money, old age pensions, and various things. But now I want to talk about the violence, because it's still a very, very real thing. Now, during the campaign, as I wrote about, there was murders of candidates. By the last count, about 38 candidates were murdered. One candidate was, sorry, that's a police car or ambulance rocking around. In Mexico City, it's a loud city. But about 38 candidates were murdered. A very brutal murder of one of the last day of campaigns of somebody running for mayor, a man running for mayor in the state of Guerrero, where the assassin walked up behind him on a basketball court while he was shaking hands with supporters and shot him in the back of the head. That assassin was then killed. They say that his family, the assassin's family, had been kidnapped and held. So kind of pretty brutal political murders. It's sad that it's so normalized in Mexico. And there's just a taste of the huge violence that has been raging across Mexico, the cartel war that has been raging across Mexico for the last 17 years. Now, Claudia Sheinbaum hasn't given away a clear strategy about what she'll do about the cartels. AMLO was derided by critics for saying he had this hugs not bullets policy. That was more of a slogan really than a policy. Didn't really materialize into that much. He also continued using the military, keeping the military on the streets. But I think it's fair to say, even for people who support AMLO, that he was weak or failed on the issue of security. He even conceded this at some points himself. This was something he didn't really get a handle on. And violence has been terrible. Now, we don't know what Claudia Sheinbaum will do. If she has she'll develop a clear strategy. As mayor of Mexico City, He was mayor here in Mexico City from 2018 to 2023. The number of murders went down, according to the police numbers, by about 43% between 2018 and 2023. There's debate about this. Critics say, oh no, they're hiding bodies, they're reclassifying numbers. Some of those critics could hold, but I don't think there's way they hid all of this fall, and there's also an increase in perception of security here as well. And one thing you see she did was she increased the number of security cameras. They had, I was looking at some of the high crime areas like Tepito, where there's been a lot of violence, and they had big police presence there. Rolling into these corners where this group La Unión de Tepito was, and they had a lot of police there kind of encamped. So kind of hitting particular high crime areas. So we can say it was a pragmatic approach to security. Now, Mexico City is not Mexico. There are very different conditions here than there are across the whole of Mexico. It's the federal government's here. Cartels have generally kept crime down. A lot of people talking of kind of Pax Mafiosi here, where they don't really want to kick things off in Mexico City. And out in many parts of Mexico, Guerrero, the drone war, Michoacán, Sinaloa, Sonora, Tijuana, Juarez, it's a very, very different story. So she can't just put security cameras up in Sinaloa, Guerrero, they just blow them up, take them down, or carry on doing things anyway. But she could do well to take a pragmatic approach of trying to do some concrete things to reduce violence in these places. The Mexican cartel war has been so bad for so long. A lot of things that everyone would want this war to end, would want the military and the police in Mexico to stop being corrupt and working with cartels, would want the military not to be on the streets, would want there to be crimes being solved rather than 90% of crimes not being solved. But these are it's gratifying to say these things. We don't want that, but that's not an easy policy. It's not a button you can press. This is a deeply embedded problem with cartels in Mexico, which are networks of paramilitary organized crime involved in all kinds of rackets, not just drugs, human smuggling, oil theft, widespread extortion. So could Claudia Sheinbaum take a more pragmatic approach and just try and put certain lines, go after the most violent criminals out there, try and really fight extortion, have some real prevention programs that do try and help the kids who are being recruited by the cartels. So those are hopes, but it could as easily, if you want to analyze it, it could as easily go wrong, and Claudia Sheinbaum could fail on security like her predecessors, and we could see more or worse of what's going on. So let's hope for the best, but also have that cynicism that it might go bad. So you got to the end of the video, so you're interested in all these issues of Mexico, drugs, crime, worldwide trafficking and everything else. If you want to check out more of this and my work, please go to www.crashoutmedia.com. You can subscribe for free for loads of stories there. Or if you want to help out, then for as little as $5 a month, less than the price of a pint of beer these days, you can join the Crash Out crew with access to everything and join in the conversation.